Hi, and welcome back to India on 99.94. I'm Nikesh Ragani, your host, commentator for the BBC and SEN, and my co-host alongside me, Sarah Warris of Wisden. Every week we've got you covered, whether it be talking about Julan Goswami or KL Rahul's strike rate, whatever it might be. If you love Indian cricket, do join us here every week on India on 99.94. And Sarah, the action just keeps coming thick and fast, doesn't it, these days with the Indian men's team? We're about to embark on an ODI series against South Africa. They've just finished a T20 international series as well, another one before the T20 World Cup. Another victory, it has to be said, another series victory, first over South Africa at home in T20i's, first white ball series win against South Africa at home since 2010. So, you know, it's all good on paper, isn't it? But the final game, and yes, India didn't go in with a full-strength batting lineup. They went in with a hell of a lot of bowlers, though, didn't they? And it didn't quite go to plan, despite all those bowling options. South Africa 227 for 3, and the same old problems once again. I mean, firstly, just before we talk about the bowling woes, another series victory, as I say. What have we learnt from this South Africa series that we didn't know already?
Just Surya Kumar Yadav is here to stay. Why wasn't he picked earlier? And Dinesh Karthik, with all his, debates over his selection, it's not the worst move, and he can be the X factor for India in the World Cup going ahead. So I think these two are the biggest positives. Obviously, Kohli's form. Um, but these are not something that we didn't know already. We always knew that once Kohli gets back to form, he'll be, crucial for India in the World Cup. And Surya Kumar Yadav, Dinesh Karthik, we know what he can do. The bowling has more issues, and yeah, that's also something we knew. But yeah, it's been increased after the home series, and it's just scary,
Yeah, so we'll discuss the series as a whole in a bit more detail. We'll look at the bowling. We'll also look at the batting and how that has shaped up ahead of the T20 World Cup as well. And while we're on that note, let's just kick off with the batting once again. So yesterday, no KL Rahul, no Virat Kohli. So very different lineup. Rishabh Pant opening the batting, which I've mentioned before that I'm a fan of. But I suppose given the other players at their disposal, it's not likely to happen anytime soon on a regular basis. He did okay, didn't he? 27 from 14, did all right. I mean, it's difficult when you lose a couple of early wickets like that, and he's out there, and what role does he play? Does he just carry on going for it? And he kind of did to an extent, but again, he was gone quite early, and there were 40-odd for 3, and you know, those old problems which we talked about before the last 6 months or so with the top order failing, and then what happens? Is there anything else left? DK came in, up the order, did a decent job. But despite yesterday and the batting lineup that was on show yesterday, I mean, the batting as a whole is shaping up very, very nicely indeed ahead of the T20 World Cup. And that, I think, is their only chance of having any success if they just bat other teams out of games. And, you know, like we said previously, bat first, get 230 odd. And, you know, it's a lot easier for your bowlers then to be able to defend that. Although given this bowling attack, you never know.
Yeah.
But it's shaping up well, isn't it, the batting? I suppose the one concern that I've got, and it might be controversial, but Rohit Sharma's form. He's got some runs. His strike rate hasn't been great in a couple of the recent games. Yesterday didn't trouble the scorers at all. Is his form a concern for you going into the World Cup?
I personally don't think so. Yeah, his strike rate is not the best. Also, of late, he's not been amongst big runs recently. But then, that's an approach that he has adopted. He has tried to bat more aggressively, even if the runs aren't coming. So he doesn't have a lot of 50 since the T20 World Cup last year. But, at least he's setting the tempo up he's failed recently. But overall, you can say that he's been setting the uh, template and batting aggressively. So, and he has a lot of experience, and so I don't really think that his form is a concern, because he scored a 50 very recently against Australia, I think, in the
He played well in that
T20i's. Yeah.
series. Yeah, the Australia series he played well
Yeah.
in. He's kind of gone off the ball a little bit in the last couple
Yep.
of South Africa games, but yeah, I see what you mean. I mean, look,
Mm.
the lineup we were, just a few months ago, just a couple of months ago, really, we were
Mm.
questioning KL Rahul's place in the side, even Virat Kohli's place in the T20 setup just before the Asia Cup, weren't we? And those concerns have been kind of put to one side with the way they've come out and shown us how they can play and the form they're in at the moment as well. So, look, the top four is probably as good as any top four in world cricket, isn't it? You've got
There's
Rohit,
Hardik
KL,
and Dinesh Karthik also there, so you can
as well,
potentially
yeah.
say
So
top
you could even
five.
say the top
Yeah.
5, 6, couldn't you? But certainly the top four. I mean, top 5 and 6, you could look at some other countries. I mean, Australia got a lot of power in the middle order.
Mm.
You look at the West Indies, and they can always. It depends which West Indies side turns up. You look at England and Harry Brooks' emergence coming in at number 5 in that Pakistan series. So there are other sort of sides who can compete in that middle order, but in the top order, those top four. And you wouldn't have thought it, would you, a few months ago, a
Yeah.
year ago, 2 years? It's been a long time since we've been saying, why are they going in with this sort of ODI mentality with their top three? And is it the right top three? Should we get all these IPL guys who've done so well, the Gaikwads and the Padikals and all these guys over the last couple of years who batted well up the top of the order, bat a little bit differently and can give you something, more explosive. But Rohit Sharma, KL Rahul, Virat Kohli, and Suryakumar Yadav, the form they're in at the moment, the way they're batting, the aura around them now as well, the hype, it's all there. That does send fear into bowling
Yep.
attacks around the world, doesn't it?
Yeah, and you spoke about having an ODI template, the top three, Rohit, KL, and Kohli. Like, so often they were criticized for having an ODI team in the T20i's. I think they need to be lauded also for the fact that the Dravid and Rohit Sharma, after the World Cup failure last year, they came in with uh, with a plan that we will bat aggressively. This is something which Rahul Dravid in his there was an interview of his yesterday. So he said that we took on this major thing, that this is a change we want. We will bat more aggressively, and Rohit and KL, we know that he can bat aggressively before, but of late is just become terrible. Now it's changed, but yeah, so for the top three to take on that approach and bat more aggressively and do what the team needs is not an easy task, especially for someone like Kohli and Rohit Sharma, who've been around for such a long time, and they have that set template. But to change that so late into their careers, I think that needs to be lauded also. And I don't think you should just see the runs that they're getting, but the overall, the fact that they're batting more aggressively and they've taken on that responsibility. I think credit goes to them also for, just changing around the batting fortunes of India in T20i's.
Yeah, indeed. And look, DK coming at the top of the order as well, showing,
Mm.
I think, not only that he can bat at the top of the order, we know he can. He's batted everywhere for India since he made his debut in '04. So it's been a very long international career that he's had. Obviously, spent time out of the side. He's back in now as this specialist finisher. But, if needed, he can come in earlier. And I think that is a key point as well, because we've seen in previous matches, haven't we, where a wicket falls in, say, the 14th, 15th over, and everybody's crying for DK to come in. It's probably the 4th wicket or something, and they're reluctant to send him in that sort of number 6 position if there's more than 4 overs left in the innings. But he's a better player than that. It might even suit him to come in a little bit earlier so he can be watchful for 3 or 4 deliveries or whatever, or maybe an over, and then kick on and just give himself that extra bit of time and that platform to then really take the bowling apart like he enjoys doing in those last 2 or 3 overs. So again, I think that's important that he got time at the crease. He came in up the order. He showed that, look, if early wickets fall, you can send me in. I can still do that other job. I can still bat. I mean, he batted aggressively still, and he had to because of the target that was on the board. But regardless of that, he can come in crisis situations as well if needed. So you don't then have to mess around with your batting order and send in people like Akshar Patel ahead of him, which doesn't make any sense to me. Especially in that Australia series, there was an incident where that happened, and Akshar just wasted 2 or 3 deliveries, really, and it was just there was no point in doing that. Akshar is more use coming in probably in the last couple of overs than DK in that situation, just the style of batters they are. So it gives India another option, doesn't it? With DK
Yeah.
just showing them once again that actually, remember, I've been playing this game for 18 years at international level. I know what I'm doing in most situations, right?
Yeah. That just forces me to think, do you think India should strengthen their batting order and having an extra batter at number 7 and just go in with 5 specialist bowlers, or have an extra bowler in the team and possibly reduce their batting depth, because the batting is doing well and you need to um pile on the 11 with bowlers. So, what approach should India take? Do you think the best chance is to have an extra batter and score 200, look to score 200 to 10 runs in every game, and
But
then,
do you
have the
need?
bowlers?
That's a fair point. But do you
Yeah,
need the
or.
number 7 to contribute if you're to be scoring over 200? Because every time India have kind of done that of late, it's been the top 4 or 5, hasn't it? And at a push down to number 6. I know.
Yeah.
Look, I know what you're saying. In chases like
Mm,
yesterday, it
yeah.
was it could have done with a few extra batters because they lost early wickets. And you've got, you've got Akshar Patel coming in at number 6, Harsha Patel number 7. It was an experimental side. They were resting a couple of players. We know why they did it. So yeah, it would have, might have made the game a little bit closer in that final T20 versus South Africa. But whether or not that's the way to go. The only problem that India have got, you see, is that if you go in with that combination, like you're suggesting, play the extra batter and go in with just the 5 bowlers, and that would include Hardik Pandya
Mm,
in that case, which then you're asking him every match he has to bowl 4 overs
yeah.
because there's nobody else in that top order who can bowl or who
Yeah.
does bowl anymore. They can bowl. Rohit can bowl. Virat can bowl. They don't practice. Well, Virat's been practicing his bowling actually recently in the nets, which might be a sign. But I think that's getting pretty desperate if you're asking him to come in and bowl. But it's not like the old days of in the Indian ODI men's team where you had Sehwag could bowl a few solid overs, Tendulkar could bowl some solid overs, Ganguly could bowl. So they're decent enough, but they're not proper all rounders as such. But they're more than useful with the ball. It's kind of like Joe Root, I suppose, the modern day equivalent, who for England is not an all rounder, but he can do a very good job when he needs to come in and bowl. But India don't have anybody like that in
Yeah.
their top order in this T20 side. So that's the issue, I think, and it puts so much pressure on somebody like Hardik. And we've seen that although he's bowling and he's been bowling quite well in the last year or so, he can still often get smacked around, and that's just the nature of the style of bowling that he comes in with, and he's all pace and aggression, and sometimes those short deliveries go flying either off the edge or down towards deep mid wicket for
Yeah.
6. It's a risk the way he bowls, and you can't rely on him, I don't think, to bowl you those 4 overs in every single match. So yeah, maybe on occasion they can do that against maybe weaker sides and things, but you come up against the Australias and the New Zealands and the Englands and the stronger sides in the competition.
Mm.
And I think you need that extra bowling option, to be honest. And that's where I think Akshar Patel will come in, and he'll probably have to bat 7. He'll probably have to
Yeah,
bat 7.
about that, Akshar Patel, the reason also I asked that question was because Akshar Patel yesterday just bowled 1 over, which was baffling. He came into bowl, I think the 14th over. That's the only over that he bowled. In the press conference later, Rahul Dravid said that you should have a look at the matchups and how Akshar Patel fares against left-handed batters, which is a fair point. He has an economy rate of around 6 against right-handers and 9 against left-handers. So it is a fair point, but this sudden obsession with the of the Indian team with bowling, uh, picking Ashwin only against a team which has left-handers and not bowling Akshar to left-handers is a little bizarre to me, because Akshar, okay, we've seen what he's done in the past, and okay, you're not bringing him on because there are left-handers batting, but then the others are going for plenty of runs also. Harsha, Umesh, whoever bowled, they went for plenty of runs. It's not that they are going at 5 or 6 runs and over and potentially getting in Akshar and he gives away 20 runs and the momentum is broken. So, Akshar wouldn't have done something which the others already, weren't doing. They were giving plenty of runs. So, why not take that risk and bowl Akshar? What if he had succeeded? And, just this whole thing about you can't get a left-hander against a left-hander is just really bizarre to me. And yeah, that's the reason I asked you that question, because technically yesterday he played as a specialist batter. So if you want that, then why not have an extra batter in your team? Which it's
I mean, you look, yesterday it was an experimental side, and they're obviously trying things, weren't they? And you'd hope they wouldn't make those kind of mistakes in a tournament. It was very much just see what the other guys can do, kind of thing, and give Akshar a chance to bat and see if he can score some runs. Just he won't be batting at number 6 in the tournament, but he might come in at 7. So it was just, I suppose, a chance to see what he could do with the bat and let him concentrate on that, perhaps. Look, we'll focus on the bowling more in just a second. We'll take a short break now, and we'll be back on the other side.
You're listening to Cricket's Conversation on 99.94. Whatever your team, we have the show for you on podcast, YouTube, or on the 99.94 app. We have India, England, South Africa, West Indies, and now Sri Lanka covered. If you want to find us, the best way is to follow us on social media at 9994DM by downloading the 9994 app or Google 99.94 on podcast. We speak cricket.
So Akshar playing as pretty much a specialist batter in that final T20 against South Africa. I mean, look, you mentioned there about the matchups, and I think it's rubbish as well, because you look at somebody like a Muttiah Muralitharan during his career. He's off spinner, right? So you'd say, like Ashwin, should love bowling to left-handers. Actually, his record was a lot better against right-handers, and he has always come out and said, I just preferred bowling against right-handers because that's mostly what I grew up on, and that's how I honed my skills. And, Shane Warne, I mean, you look at some of those wickets that he took against the left-handers, like Andrew Strauss in that 05 Ashes series, those vicious, you could find the rough outside the leg, outside the off stump of the left-hander and really get it to rip and cause them all sorts of issues. So I don't understand. If you're one of the best bowlers in the world, like Ashwin is and has been for some time, you should be able to do it against anyone. It doesn't matter if it's a right-hander, left-hander. Yeah, occasionally you will get, those days where, look, the right-handers are finding it a little bit easier, and it's doing a little bit more when you're coming round the wicket and bowling to the lefties and turning it away. And we understand that he might be more useful against left-handers, but to only then play him against sides with loads of left-handers in and just completely disregard him when there's quite a few right-handers around in the opposition, it's almost disrespectful to him that he hasn't got the skills to be able to get right-handers out. I mean, he's got variations. He's got the carom ball. He's got, the top spinner and whatever. So he is more than capable of bowling to right-handers. And it's just a weird obsession. Yeah. But that aside,
and that will, just the 11 won't be fixed, so to say. There won't be momentum in the side.
Yeah.
There's a saying that if there's a winning team, you don't change the winning team. So what if Ashwin is playing and the next match there's a team which doesn't have a left-hander? Does Chahal come in? But Chahal, he doesn't have the defensive bowling skills. He gets expensive on his day. And then the next match, does Ashwin come in again? Or if, a left-hander is batting, then Akshar doesn't bowl. So, it's just the whole bowling attack will kind of be keeping on revolving and rotating. And yeah, going into a World Cup, you need some sort of continuity also, which somehow to me seems a little baffling.
Yeah, it does. I mean, the spinning conundrum is an interesting one, but the fast bowling is the concern, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
look, yesterday Akshar only bowled the 1 over. Yeah, he went for 13, but came in quite late. They'd already got some momentum by then, South Africa, and he, like the others, didn't fare very well. But it was just the 1 over, so we can't judge him too much on that. He has been bowling well of late on the whole. Ashwin, the only one to go for single figures in his economy rate, going at just less than 9 runs an over, which in the context of things wasn't a bad effort at all. But then you've got Deepak Chahar, 4 overs, 1 for 48. Siraj, none for 44. Umesh Yadav, 3 overs, 1 for 34. Harsha Patel, 4 overs, none for 49. I mean, it's just terrible, isn't it? I mean, all right, there's no Bhuvi, so that might have made a difference early on. But Deepak Chahar is this is what I was going back to a couple of games ago. He's bowling at 6 runs and over off his spell, and we're all saying, "Oh, Deepak Chahar is the answer to our problems and whatever." And I said, didn't I, that they're just not consistent. So can he do it for 2 or 3 matches in a row?
Yeah.
The answer is no, from what we've seen of late anyway. And going into a World Cup with such little time to go until that World Cup, it's a massive concern. And yeah, he's not probably going to be one of your frontline players in that. He'll probably be a reserve. But it's just the lack of options is baffling at the moment. We've talked about India's fast bowling stocks, haven't we?
Yeah.
But when we
And-
look at white ball cricket,
Yeah.
it doesn't look as impressive. I mean, in Test cricket, fine. You've got Bumrah when he's fit, and Bumrah in this side would make a massive difference. We'll come on to that in a moment. But aside from Bumrah, in Test cricket, you've got Umesh Yadav, you've got Ishant even of late. You've got Siraj, you've got Mohammad Shami, of course. Shardul Thakur
Shardul,
can come in
yeah.
and do a really good job in Test cricket as well. Those same bowlers, Bumrah aside, put them in with a white ball, and none of them, I mean, Ishant doesn't even play these days in international cricket anyway, white ball. Shami doesn't look impressive. Shardul Thakur, sometimes on his day can be useful. Siraj, expensive. There's real lack of options. Umesh Yadav, he's completely different animal in white ball cricket to what he is in Test cricket. So it's worrying, very worrying.
Yeah, and I was just looking up one stat, and I came across that Bumrah has the best economy rate at the death amongst all Indian bowlers who have bowled minimum of 300 deliveries, which is 7.36. And the next best on the list is Bhuvaneshwar Kumar, who has an economy rate of 9.65 in the death overs, which, just such a huge contrast. And I think, the Indian team, they themselves don't know who is going to be the replacement, because the options are, there is no clear candidate. Yesterday, Rohit Sharma, they asked him who potentially can replace Bumrah, and what Rohit Sharma said was, we are taking 4 or 5 bowlers with us to Australia. I think Umran Malik is also traveling to Australia. Siraj is going, Deepak Chahar obviously, and the other option, I think Shami.
They might as well just take the whole MRF
Yeah.
Pace Academy and see who does well in the
And
nets
yeah,
out there.
so they said that they are playing a few practice games against Western Australia, and they have the ICC games also before the World Cup. And then they will decide based on, who impresses them the most and all that. So the fact that the camp, they themselves don't know who is the clear candidate, or that one player who can replace Bumrah, just shows the sorry state of affairs. And we spoke about this earlier also. Shami wasn't in the T20i plans apparently. He had been told he won't be picked further, but to go back to him again shows how desperate they are for just some experience or some sort of player who can bowl decently. So
yeah. Look, we'll look at those options in just a second, as well as to who can replace Bumrah and how India can fill that giant Bumrah-shaped hole in their side. In just a moment, we'll take another break and we'll see you in a moment.
If you love the language of cricket and want more, then head over to the 99.94 app and you can hear all of our podcasts and cricket commentary. We're adding new shows all the time and covering cricket series from all over the world. Be the first to hear all of our announcements by following us on social media at 9994DM. Welcome to Cricket's Conversation.
So yeah, India taking a whole host of reserves then to Australia ahead of that World Cup. So, I mean, look, from what they say as well, from what Rahul Dravid has said and from what Rohit Sharma has said, it is going to be Shami. I mean, just in case people are wondering, well, why didn't Shami play in the South Africa series then? Well, he's still recovering from COVID. So that's another issue as well. Is he, whether you test negative or not, the fact is COVID is an illness and sometimes people recover in different ways and it can take a lot longer for some people to recover. If you've had quite a harsh bout of COVID, it's like a big solid flu and worse in some cases as well. So we don't know the extent. I mean, we'll never know the extent of many things with the BCCI's communication these days. So we don't know how bad his COVID was and how long he's going to take to recover, and if he's going to be in a physical state even to make the India squad ahead of that World Cup. So that's another concern that they've got. But it looks very much from what they are saying, they want Shami in the side, and he is their preferred option if possible. Isn't that right?
Because yesterday Rohit did hint at we want someone with experience and who has bowled in Australia before. So that immediately puts Umran Malik out of the question. And I think then Siraj, he has, but he doesn't have the experience, just one series there. I think it's going to be Shami. And, that's the whole reason they called him up also. And they added him as a standby in the World Cup squad. So having COVID at the last minute just threw out their plans. But I somehow think it's going to be Shami. I don't agree with it, but then there are no other options. So
it looks as though it is going to be Shami. I mean, look, is this just before I talk about Bumrah and the future with him and his injury? I put out a tweet a couple of days ago, just sort of look. Is the stats have been doing the rounds for a few days? I just put it out there once again when he was officially ruled out of the T20 World Cup that since 2019. In IPL matches, he's played 59 out of the 60 available matches. And in that same time, India at that point had played 71 T20i's, 72 now with this final one. And he's played 16 of them. I'm not suggesting that Bumrah is favouring IPL over country. Nothing of the sort. And I know he's played a lot of Test cricket in that time as well. I'm not stupid. I do watch Test cricket. I get paid to go and commentate on it. So I do see Jasprit Bumrah bowling over after over. And I love his attitude. There's nothing wrong with his attitude. But this is a question for the BCCI, who pay him on a central contract. And yes, they also run the IPL, which is the problem, I think. And they make a lot of money out the IPL and they want all their big stars playing in the IPL, of course. But then when you compare it to the other big two nations in world cricket, Australia and England, they routinely pull out their players out of the big tournaments, even their own big domestic tournaments like the Big Bash or the 100, or as it previously was in England, the T20 Blast was the flagship, but now it's the 100. So And even, I mean, they pull him out of both in England sometimes. They can't play the Blast and they can't play the 100, even though they take place at different times of the summer as well. They'll just pull out their senior players. I mean, Ben Stokes took a decision himself, actually, to pull out of the 100 this year because it was just too much cricket and the T20 World Cup was coming up, and he's not even gone to Pakistan to play the T20 International. So I know it can have a bit of a knock-on effect into internationals, and that's what's happened with Bumrah, hasn't it? They've seen these bilateral, perhaps meaningless T20 series against certain nations in the last year or so, or couple of years, and they've said, look, there's no point in risking him in like a 3-match series against Bangladesh or whoever it might be. I'm just giving an example. Let's keep him fit, and I understand that. That's fine. He might only, be able to play, 25-30% of India's T20 internationals because of workload as well. But then why are you putting him through the grinder in the IPL and making him available for? He was available for all 60 matches, but I think he got injured for one match for the Mumbai Indians in that period, and that's why he couldn't
He was
play.
rested, I think, because
was he
they had
rested?
qualified.
Okay.
Yeah, they
So
had qualified, so they
that's
rested
right.
him.
They'd
Yeah.
qualified, hadn't they? So that they then found the opportunity to rest him, but that was so he was fresh then for the playoffs and the final. So he was available for all 60 matches. I'm not saying that injuries are pre-planned or anything like that. Yeah, they're random. They happen. But you look at somebody like Bumrah. He's a fast bowler first and foremost. So you've got to look after these guys. India have not produced many quality fast bowlers in their history. And in recent times, they have been doing. And they have been trying to look after them to an extent. But when it comes to playing in the IPL, the BCCI almost just bows down to all the franchises. They pay these players their central contracts. Their central contracts come above anything else. They come above the IPL that is their bread and butter, and the BCCI effectively owns them.
Yeah.
As a commodity, don't they? They own these players. They can tell them when and where to play and how much they should be resting as well. And I don't understand how your fast bowlers, and this is not just Bumrah. You look at other fast bowlers who play all formats. I mean, you could argue Mohammad Shami's played all formats in the last 3 or 4 years as well. So why is he playing so much IPL? All these guys, especially when they're getting into their late 20s and early 30s and they know their game, they don't need to play 60 IPL matches to hone their skills and all this rubbish, like some fans have been sort of tweeting me and stuff. They know their game. They need rest, recuperation. They need to look after their bodies first and foremost, so they can be at their best for India. And that, I think, is a big concern, the fact that the BCCI isn't year-round looking after their players, and that includes IPL as well.
Yeah, I had also tweeted something like this very similarly, and I got a lot of backlash, but it was regarding Rohit Sharma. I think it was a 2020 IPL where he missed a few games because of a hamstring injury. But he played the playoffs. He played the playoffs, the semis, the finals also. And after that, the hamstring injury was aggravated and he missed the series in Australia. So he got fit in time for the last 2 test matches, and India then made that
But there was
comeback.
the quarantine and all that stuff at that time as well, wasn't there?
So I had put out the tweet back then, and obviously I got a lot of backlash where I was so-called questioning his commitment, etc., etc. But he was injured, and everyone knew he was injured because he said that he had an hamstring injury. That's why he's sitting out of a few games. So why didn't the BCCI step in? And also Varun Chakrabarti last year before the T20 World Cup, he had a knee injury or something with the knee. Obviously, we didn't know what it was, but some knee issue before the World Cup. But he still continued playing for KKR. And he was selected in the T20 World Cup team. I'm sure the BCCI would have been aware of it. So, but he played right till the final. He didn't miss a single game. So, as you said, the BCCI should step in and say, okay, country first, and club will come. And the BCCI aren't doing it because somehow maybe they think the IPL is the IPL and it gets them revenues
Yeah,
or
but-
whatever. But
I
if
mean,
the star players aren't there, they won't get revenues.
exactly.
Yeah, it's after a point you have to see what that India first above. And this is not questioning the
Yeah.
players; it's questioning the
It's not.
BCCI.
No,
Yeah,
it is the BCCI, and
yeah,
look. They control the IPL. It's their product.
Yeah.
They can and the players are on central contracts, so they can tell them exactly
Yeah.
what to do. And that Rohit Sharma incident ahead of the Australia series. I mean, look, India went on and won that series, and it was a miracle. But
Mhm.
Rohit being injured after the IPL, I mean, that effectively, with Virat going home after the first test as well, by the way, and they're just, the 36 all out and whatever else happened. So even with Virat, that happened. And then to have then your star batter going home, your captain, and then potentially your, all right, he wasn't vice captain, then it was Rahane, but, you have another senior player and another senior batter coming into the side to replace him or even be there from the very start of the series. That, I mean, it could have been the difference
Yeah.
between winning and losing a series down under in Australia. The fact that he played on through his injury for the
And even
Mumbai
World
Indians.
Test Championship points were at stake. Then
Yeah.
India wouldn't have qualified if they didn't win the series. So
Absolutely, yeah.
it was just a miracle. But yeah,
Yeah, so I don't understand it. And if that was that Rohit Sharma situation, like you mentioned, absolute great example. If that was Cricket Australia, or if that was the ECB, there's no chance Rohit would
Yeah.
have played any more part in the IPL. They would have tried to get him fit ahead of the next international series and a massive series at that as well. Always a marquee series when India tour down under in Australia. So look, it's frustrating, but look, it's no slur on the players at all. They just get paid to play and they get told when to play and they go and do their job and they do it very well. And somebody like Jasprit Bumrah has got a fantastic attitude to everything, to his cricket, to his fitness, to life, really. He's just a nice bloke. So it's nothing against him, but the BCCI should look at particularly managing him. He's got a weird action. Look, we talked about the back-breaking sort of nature of his action. It's an awkward action. There's a lot of strain goes into his body every time he bowls a delivery. And yeah, you could, come back and say, oh, he only bowls 4 overs in each IPL game and stuff. In the IPL season, they play, they travel, they train, they play, they travel, they train. You're keeping unsocial hours. You're staying up till 3 a.m. by the time you get back to the hotel, eat, go to sleep. It's a difficult, it's more difficult than just turning up and bowling 4 overs and then just sitting back in an ice bath. You got to field, you got to be on it for 2 months every single year. And that's what he's been doing for the last 3 years. 2 months every single year. He's there every single time for the Mumbai Indians, putting in his all. But it's about time the BCCI looked at him and one or two of the other fast bowlers and said, look, we won't make them available for maybe the whole thing. Maybe 75% of the matches you can have him, or 50% of the matches you can have him, depending on injury situations. And that's your lot. Maybe they could choose the 50% that they have him. And if they want to play him more than 7 matches in the group stage, they have to seek permission from the BCCI, if they've got a special injury situation or whatever it is. So there are ways around it. I don't think it'll happen though. But we can but hope. Just a very quick question. I know we're going a little bit long today, but there's lots to get through. Just a very quick question. Do India need to prepare for life without Jasprit Bumrah based on this injury? And we don't know the extent of it and the long-term implications of it. And just the fact that, he's, not old, but he's getting on a little bit. He's bowled a lot of overs. He's old in terms of experience and bowling a lot of overs, both domestically and now in the last few years internationally as well, with that awkward action. Injuries are going to come, and we've seen it over the last 3 years, the last 4 years actually. He's had like 3 big back injuries that have kept him out for significant periods of time. Do India need to prepare for life without him? And how do they do
definitely. Yeah, I think he's just going to be available for the World Cups And he's good enough to, just show up at the World Cup and just be the star in that. I don't see him playing a lot of bilaterals, be it ODIs or home test matches anyway, he doesn't play. So, yeah, they're just going to, keep him for overseas test matches. That also against the stronger teams like Australia and, all these SENA countries. And yeah, I think it'll just go be the World Cups. I think 2023 World Cup, I hope he will be there, but he won't play a lot of ODIs before that. Like, that's what I see happening in the future.
Yeah, well, look, we wish him a speedy recovery, of course. And, he's tweeted his frustration at being left out of the World Cup. No player wants to miss those big occasions, but we wish him well with his recovery, and we hope to see him back in India colours very soon. Well, thank you very much for listening. That's all we got time for this week. Gone on a little bit longer than we expected to, but lots to get through, as I said. We'll be back very soon to talk more Indian cricket. Thank you for following us. Remember to rate us on your podcast app or on YouTube. Just leave a comment. Tell us what you think of the show. Remember, you can find us on your podcast app, on YouTube, or via the 99.94 app. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.